All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining our citywide PTO meeting this month. Sorry we did not meet last month. Some stuff came up for a lot of people and it just was quiet anyway, so we skipped in the winter. If you can, real quick, just drop your name in the chat as usual, just so we have a log as to who is here. Other than that, I sent out the meeting minutes earlier today. Hopefully you guys had a chance to review them from so that would have been our December meeting. If anybody took a look at them, I'm asking for a motion to approve those minutes, please. Oh, I see you waving, Cheryl. All right. Thank you, Cheryl. So that's a motion. I got a second. Anybody second?
Second.
Who that was? Was that Maggie?
Yes.
All right, perfect.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, so motion's approved for that. Treasurer report. So I'm still acting treasurer. For anybody that does not know, we have a vacancy at the treasurer position. So if anybody is interested in joining our citywide board, please, 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 we are still looking. As of right now, we have $571.73 in the account. We did get charged our Zoom bill, which was $170 for the year. That was on January 9th. And as of this year, so far this school year, we have received dues from AIS, King Street, Mill Ridge, Shelter Rock, Broadview, Westside, and DHS. So anybody who's on this call, I don't think there's anybody here that's not in that group. But if you have not paid your dues, they're $25, covers the year. And I sent out periodic, if I can resend it if you need, just send an email to Citywide for an invoice for that, just for your financial records.
Chrissy, I'm sorry, who was after Shelter Rock? For dues paid? Yeah.
Shelter Rock, Broadview,
Cool.
Westside, and DHS. Sorry, going fast.
Thank you.
Tim's taking minutes tonight for Jess is double dipping, so she's holding down the fort while her husband's away. All right, so that brings us to school reports. Anybody has a report they'd like to give real quick, I ask that you go ahead, unmute, and give us an update as to what's going on in your school.
Hi.
All right, how you doing?
Good. So we have the Scholastic Book Fair coming up. My favorite person dance on Friday. Read aloud for second grade on Thursday. We have, we're going to have an end of year event, of course, and some things happening in the spring, but nothing's been really pinned down yet.
Awesome. Cool.
Thank you.
Good things at AIS. All right.
So everyone can hear me, right?
Yep.
Okay. So for PTO for Pembroke, we got this week, tomorrow we have our meeting for the month. Then Friday we have our school store. Not that it's PTO related, but Thursday for the 100 days, they're doing 80s themed clothing or attire for the 100 days of school. Then we have coming up in March, we have our anti-bullying presentation by the Hat Tricks. And then we have our family game, attend one of the Hat Tricks games. Okay, very nice. Okay, yeah, sorry about that. We have our Hat Tricks game. Then we have coming in up in April, the Monday before April, we have a planetarium in-house field trip for all of our students. So I'm new to this, but we've had parents say that this is one of the greatest things ever. So we got that coming in for our kids. And we got Valentine's. We're going to do a little Valentine's treat for the kids on the 14th. And that's what we got going on so far for Pembroke.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I go for Westside?
Absolutely.
Okay, so for Westside, on Friday, we had a kindness night where kind work and did stations for our students and families about kindness. Students actually created a shirt that has Westside Choose Kindness that we're selling. If the proceeds from it, we are to for our teacher in the your Chipotle are next Wednesday, the 12th, Valentine's Day. We are the teacher tree, a bag of like candy and water. We have our funder on February 22nd. And then for this week's PTO, we have the Career Academy opening at our school.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hi there, Melissa from King Street.
Right.
Our school worked with Spice City on their opening night, so we had our families go out to support them. So it was a great little fundraiser for us. They're a great company to work with. And we had our Chipotle fundraiser that helps us with our fifth grade end of year stuff. So we allocate that stuff. Our fifth graders are going to have their tall and small this week, or this month coming up. So our fifth grade parents are working really hard on that. And then we have Buffalo Wild Wings as well this month. So we thought good for the Super Bowl, get some wings in there. And they're actually great. They go like all day. They go from 12 till 10 at night. So if anyone's looking for something, it's a good one. Get breakfast, lunch, and munchies at night. And then our kindergarten first and second is doing an 80s for our 100th day, and our third grade is still doing their old person because they love it so much. So that's what we've got going on.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you.
I can go, DHS. This is Gina. We have our meeting next Monday, and we have some guidance counselors coming out to do a Schoology presentation. And I think we're gonna do a college night at the meeting also. So that's our meeting next Monday. We are starting to plan teacher appreciation. We're not sure if we're gonna do breakfast or lunch in May. And we're trying to decide how we're gonna support our seniors. Typically we do like a cup and we stuff it with like random things that they end up trashing. So we're trying to do something that they'll appreciate more. So we're looking into possibly contributing to their field trip. We're going to contribute to their prom. So we're trying to figure out how to best use our funds that support the most number of kids. And that's basically what we're working on right now.
Cool. Thank you.
I'll go for Shelter Rock.
All right.
Last month, right before winter break, we were able to do holiday cookies. So we were able to give every student in the school a chocolate chip cookie before they went on break to kind of do with their holiday movie and stuff. We also just did our Hat Tricks fundraiser a couple weeks ago. We're currently working on our yearbook cover contest. So February is where all the teachers get to vote on which illustration they like the best from the students. And coming up, we also have our carnations for Valentine's Day, and we will be hosting a bake sale at our school's talent show in March.
Awesome. All right. Is there anyone else? I thought I saw somebody here from Broadview, but maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't. All right. Anybody else? Once, going twice. Don't be shy. All right. Okay, so then I guess at this point I don't have anything other
Nah.
than vacancies. Tim, do we have anything?
Nope.
No. Okay. So then I guess we will turn it over to Dr. Casimiro for a budget presentation about the school budget.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
I'd like to introduce Mr. Michael Weaver. Mike is our CFO, our new CFO for Danbury Public Schools. And so if you hadn't had a chance to meet him, he's been doing a phenomenal job in his first stint as a school CFO, although he's had many stints before that in different arenas. But he's done a great job for us so far this year and helped us really pull our budget together and help us do some projections that are greatly needed. So he is with me tonight, and as I told Tim, he's going to keep me honest with my numbers. If I go off course, okay. So I wanted to just briefly talk a little bit about the last time that we were together. We talked about doing a little bit of a poll with the parents to understand their budget priorities so that we would have that in mind as we were building the budget, but also Should we need to make adjustments to the budget, we understand what the parent priorities are. So just kind of very briefly before I get into the full presentation, I'll just pull up a slide which shows our survey results. And we had about 600 or so. Just give me 1 second. 600 or so parents respond, and they selected their top 3 priorities. And the top 3 were supporting sports, the arts, and extracurricular activities, increasing safety measures, and making class sizes smaller. So really not a shock that the top 3 were those. They seem to be perennial favorites when we do ask this question. The 4th one down was upgrading school facilities, creating new programs for students, and enhancing technology, classroom, and resources. So these were sort of in the middle here of equal weight. And then, of course, the big priorities are supporting sports, arts, extracurricular activities, and increasing safety measures in the district. So we take the parental polls very seriously. We also did some polling for staff that we're taking a look at now internally to see what their budget priorities are. Class sizes was one. The poll is still out there, but making sure that we have adequate staffing and supports for kids, and safety and facilities were at the top of those as well, and resources. I'm going to zoom out of there for a second. I'll pull up another presentation, which is our budget. Give me a second there. Okay. All right, does that look okay on your end, everyone?
Yep.
Okay, good. Okay, so we were very lucky that our board passed the first superintendent budget unanimously. It is now the board's budget. We met and did a workshop on January 21st, and the Board of Education passed our budget on that following Wednesday. And we spent time digging into our district priorities, the major drivers, and unpacking some of the bigger needs that we've been facing in the last couple of years, last year and this year as well, that we came to the board with in terms of our budget meeting moving forward. So if you take a look, these are our strategic plan and district priorities. These are our buckets, if you will, of focus and where we put a lot of our efforts, and then therefore also alignment with our budget. So teaching and learning, providing good quality staff development, really important, the talent acquisition. This is playing true ever more so this year than before with recruitment and retention, improving school climate, and that deals with the teaching and learning environment, also safety and the emotional growth and civic responsibilities of students, families, et cetera, so that making sure that our schools are good places to go to school and also good places to be if you are working there. Meaningful collaboration, so engagement with families and all stakeholders, and then resource allocation using our budgeted, our fiscal resources in a financially responsible manner. So the budget process this year was an opportunity for a fresh start. This was Mike Weaver's first budget build and my first budget build from the ground up. We put a few things in that were a little bit different this year. There was a lot of effort and attention put into meeting with every single department and every single school leader so that we really had an understanding of their needs. I think in the last couple of years, because we've had financial difficulties, we've just sort of rolled forward. If you had it last year, you're lucky to keep it. And that was sort of the plan that we used. So this year was a real fine-tooth comb to make sure that every single school leader and department leader had an opportunity to really discuss what was happening in their building, but also the needs. Not so much wants. We're not quite at the place where we could list out all the wants, but the things that we really need to be a high-functioning school district. We spent a lot of time looking at operational efficiencies, prioritizing critical need areas. We've had several hot spots this year over the course of the year as a result of the reductions from the prior year. And in many cases, we realized that we were functioning below optimal levels, which was actually costing us a little bit of money, time, and frustration, which was wearing on a lot of our climate and culture this year. And we'll talk a little bit more about that further in. Understanding reasonable year-to-year growth, that we need to catch up for a decade of underfunding. So while the ask this year was large, it really is just an accumulation of what we've needed all along that has come to a head, similar to the way that it was last year. And then with the way that we're positioning the budget this year, creating budgets by location, which is a little bit different than how we've did it in the past. There creates a greater sense of transparency on how each department, each school, each bucket, if you will, how they are spending their money, and comparing the budgets to actuals, and then using that as a solid basis for the next year's budgeting. And so while that may seem basic, there are some pieces missing in our ability to do accurate projections. And so I think with Mike's expertise and the way that he built the budget and the way that we're moving forward on the back end of things, it'll allow us to have cleaner, more transparent projections for the future, which allows us to articulate our need and engage in greater dialogue with the city. So here's our district profiles for those who are on the call. Most are familiar with this. We have 2 early childhood centers, 13 elementary schools, 3 middle schools, 1 very large high school, soon to be 2 sites, and 2 alternative programs. Our multilingual learner number is at 38%. So not only are we the highest number across the state, but we are the highest percentage-wise in the state. So we have the most amount of multilingual learners in the state of Connecticut. We are at the top of that list. Similarly, our numbers are on the rise for economically disadvantaged, and students with disabilities has also increased just a tad to just a little over 15%. We were hovering around 14. So we have some driving needs here, and this has been a constant driving needs with our multilingual learners and the services that they need to be successful. Our enrollment, no surprise that seem to be on the uptick. This is a little bit of an off year because of the kindergarten age and the cutoff. So we're down about 200 or so plus students. So we're looking to see how this affects us this year when students come back to re-enroll for the 25-26 school year. We think we'll be around this number, but that is yet to be seen, and students are just starting to enroll now. Again, just a quick chart of our multilingual learners. As you can see in 24-25, we've topped the chart at 4,541. With this projection holding true, we anticipate being at 4,630, give or take. And with special education, we are at 1,756 this year and projected to be close to 1,800. Some of those projections are made based on the students that we know that will be coming into the district. So key issues for our budget, we're at the basic level, meeting contractual obligations and cost of living, recruiting and retaining staff, restoring the eliminated positions from the 24-25 budget, and not all of them, but at least about half of them or so that we need back. Moving ARPA positions back into the general fund. So the city did a great job of securing us about $7.5 million to use for one-time funds for the school system. If you recall, City of Danbury received about $12 million, and 7.5 of that came directly to us, and then the remaining funds, most of it indirectly also came back to the school districts in terms of capital improvements. As everybody knows, we are in the process of opening up DHS West, which we're very excited about. But to open up that campus, it needs to be fully staffed. And so supporting the enrollment needs for the high school and the operational staff needed to operate another satellite campus is included in here. And it's a major driver for the budget for next year. Transportation, as you can imagine, when moving an additional 1,400 kids, separating them out to another campus creates transportation needs moving across the city in different ways, affecting our tier transportation plan. So we are approximating almost needing 28 or so buses. It could be less. We're working on some of that now to run across the district for the transportation. Ensuring safety and security, as this is one of our parents' primary concerns. It is for us as well. So there are some increases around the security components. And some of this also has to do with our staffing model. As I mentioned before, our SPED numbers are on the rise. And so too are the tuitions, our out-of-state tuitions and out-of-district placements for the most part. The SPED, special education, is a very hot topic at the state level. There's a lot of legislation being posed around this because it is such a rapidly growing cost for districts, and there's not a lot of controls placed around that. And so that's something that many districts are hoping we'll get some relief from down the road, but right now it's very much a part of our budget for next year. So I want to talk a little bit about remaining competitive. So Danbury, you know, a few of our contracts are competitive from a salary standpoint. However, because we have our enrollment is the way it has been, and our staffing levels have not kept up in a way that they needed to, the conditions in Danbury, teaching in Danbury, the conditions of working here, if you're an administrator, if you're a teacher, are a little bit more challenging than they are in some of our surrounding districts. In addition to that, our surrounding districts and districts in our county are raising the rate of pay at a faster rate than Danbury has been. So while we've been working hard to keep up with those contracts, we are competing with surrounding districts and in our county for the same people, but at a lower rate. And so this is causing us to have a very difficult time attracting and an even harder time retaining. One of the greatest examples of this, and it's something that, again, is a driver in this budget, relates to our paraeducators. Our paraeducators work with special needs students. They work with students who need academic intervention. They work with students who may need one-on-one support. They work in a variety of capacities, supporting the needs of students and working in classrooms. Teachers cannot do their jobs without them. Administrators cannot do their jobs without them. They are absolutely essential. Some of our paraeducators service our multilingual learners. And in many cases, when we cannot find a bilingual teacher, our paraeducators are helping us to fill some of those language service needs by providing native language support in the classroom. So between students needing intervention, which is a mandate, which students needing their second language learner services mandate, and special education services, which is IEP driven, all of the paraeducators and the work that they do is super critical to the functioning of our school district. So you're saying, well, what's the problem with the paraeducators? Well, right now, I believe the starting salary for our paraeducators is around $16 an hour. And if you go to surrounding districts, they're in the 20s. Some are even higher than that. So it makes it very difficult for us to attract people to come to our district and to retain them for the future. And so we have about around 40 to 50 openings right now with our paraeducators. We spend a lot of time trying to fill those holes and making sure that we're meeting all of our obligations. So it's a very serious situation when we can't fill those positions, so much so that legally we still have to fill certain positions. We have to go and use agencies to backfill these positions. The agencies come at a very high premium, making it not a cost-effective solution to supporting this issue. So one of our big drivers is going to be to right size our paraeducator contract to ensure that we remain competitive. Safety advocates. We have a similar situation with safety advocates. And right now, I don't remember how many we're at now because it changes daily. We're also using an agency to staff a good number of our safety advocates because we cannot attract or retain safety advocates for the same reason. So we do have an ask in there around supporting the benefits and contracts in there as well, so that we make our contracts more attractive. As I mentioned before, urban districts face greater challenges. So class size, learner profiles, having less support in the classroom make teaching in Danbury a little bit more challenging than our neighbors, than teaching in our neighborhood schools. I'm sorry, our neighbors, surrounding in the greater Danbury area. So we need to make sure that in order to fill persistent vacancies, in order to remain competitive, and also to make sure that our kids are getting the very best teachers that we can afford, we need to take a good look at some of our contracts and make sure that we're staying competitive. We found out very quickly this year how badly the losing 68 positions in our budget last year has affected us. We are all feeling the effects of not having that staff across the buildings, the schools, and all the departments. We talked a lot about how the operational inefficiency that is happening this year actually can cost money down the road. So we have several key positions. When we talk about the driver, that is called the restore driver, where we're looking to restore 29 of the 68 positions that we lost last year back into this budget to bring us a little bit closer than where we were this year. So this has been a very challenging year staffing wise. The other thing that we talked about is our ability to staff certain positions. So when you cannot have enough staff in a classroom, sometimes in certain cases, which means we're not able to support certain students here in district, which results in outplacement tuitions, which are extremely expensive. And so again, not having the right staff and not being able to maintain staff creates a bigger, costlier condition down the road. In addition, and someday it's almost its own presentation, but when you have, for example, really good intervention systems and students are receiving really robust intervention, it prevents special education costs down the road. And there's a lot of research behind that. But again, that's like a whole nother layer of presentation, but there's a lot of research on the cost of prevention. As I mentioned, we're looking to restore eliminated positions. We lost 68 last year in the budget. While that was not highly publicized because they were not physical losses, we only had two staff members who physically lost their job because we could not find them another opening in the district. But we lost 68 positions out of our budget. That included teachers, coaches, support staff, counselors, media specialists, operations staff, and administrators. And so our inability to attract and retrain current staff does cause instructional and operational challenges. And we've had a big issue this year with morale in the building as a result of that. And so I've listened and heard to many of our staff members and our administrators across the district, and this is a great concern, which is why it was played such a prominent role in our budget for next year. I'd like to give everybody a second to take a look at this slide. This is an example of how Danbury compares very basically to a school that is very similar to one student difference. This is a Danbury Elementary School. This is one of our real schools, not to be named. And this is a Norwalk Elementary School of 465. In Danbury, our staffing model looks like this: one principal, one assistant principal, and that's only if you're at the larger school. The rest of our elementary schools do not have assistant principals. One secretary, one student support specialist, one SRBI paraprofessional, one social worker, and a 0.8 psychologist. If you were to go over to Norwalk, one principal, one assistant principal, one dean of students that are certified admins, not serving as a teacher, one principal secretary, one administrative assistant, in addition to that secretary, 1.5 reading improvement teachers or specialists, 2 math improvement teachers or specialists, 2 literacy coaches assigned to the school, 1 math coach assigned to the school, 1 gifted and talented teacher, 4 SRBI paraprofessionals, those are people delivering explicit intervention in small groups, kindergarten paraprofessionals in every classroom. Those are extra hands in the classroom. And 1 social worker, 1 school counselor, and a half-time school psychologist, all for that 1 school. So this is the difference with what we're doing in Danbury compared to typical school. We compare ourselves often to Norwalk because we are very close in size and demographics. And so this is a stark contrast. And so again, while our budget this year is a large ask, we're only trying to get to the place where we reach minimum levels of the support that we need to be successful. We had some questions around how we are spending our ARPA funds that the city allocated to us. So we were allocated $7.5 million. So last year, given our funding cliff in our budget, we offset this year the technology needs, so replacement technology and infrastructure, student and teacher devices. So those are our refreshment cycles since we're one-to-one, excuse me. Supplement for our DHS West Campus to help us make our transition. Supplemental for AIS Magnet School for some of the tuition dollars that have been lost as a result of some tuition changes. And then this is the staff that DHS needed this year to meet their enrollment needs. So this had to be offset in one-time funding, so which also needs to be recouped. As far as the existing staff, we had our media specialists. If you paid attention to the budget last year, you know that the media specialists and the instructional coaches were on the elimination block. And the one-time funding allowed us to hold on to them for this year. So there's $2.2 million there. And then we had some money set aside for student supplies and also the fees incurred for the audit that we had several audits over maybe the last 2 years. And we needed outside support for those audits because we did not have the staffing internally to keep up with those. So here's just a visual depiction of the big buckets of our budget drivers, okay? So on the right-hand side, the contractual increases are about $4,500,000. Restoration of positions eliminated from the last year's budget is about 3.2. All other new positions, which I'll go over in this budget, 1.1 million. Some of those are SPED and multilanguage learner, and also positions that are needed departmentally. The competitive para staffing model, 4.9 million. That includes not just the increasing of the salary to attract and retain, but also to add some paraprofessionals at the elementary level in our K and 1 classes, K1 and 2, where our most vulnerable learners are, who need intervention early on to prevent problems down the road. Special education increases in costs are 2.8. Multilanguage learner needs are 1.1. Benefits for positions above 4.4. And I'm sorry, we had an increase, was it 19% increase? 19% increase in the cost of our healthcare. And then IT improvements and security, 233,000. Normally that would be much higher, but we offset that in the ARPA funds this year. So normally that number would be a lot bigger. And then just an accumulation of other incremental increases across many smaller categories that total 1.8. And we have those coming up here. So I'll try to move along a little bit more quickly. Our total budget request for the school year for next year, 25-26, was $194,464,946. It's an increase of almost $34.5 million, which is a 21.5% increase. This is just a slide depiction moving left to right. It's another way to visualize the ask, broken down by buckets and category types on the left, and then the drivers going across the top in blue, so that you can see where those buckets and drivers kind of meet up. On the right is the total increase, and at the bottom is the total budget. Just another way to look at the budget visually that some people prefer to look at it this way. I'll try to move through these slides because this was part of the budget workshop. So we spent time in detail. We don't have this as much time tonight, but you can see these are the staff associated with the academies of Danbury. Okay, basically, everything from custodians to safety advocates, refuse removal, transportation, natural gas, electric, the teachers that are needed to go over there, the nurses, the secretaries, the school resource officer. All of those are needed in a building just like they are that we have at Danbury High School, but at a little bit of a smaller scale. The projected enrollment for next year is about 800 students. The building is ready for 1,400, but we're going to staff it for 800 to do two things. One, reduce some of the costs of staffing in the first year that we're there, but also two, to allow our 12th graders to remain on campus where they'll finish out their time. So that was a little bit of a win-win strategy heading into next year. So our contractual obligations and increases. So when you roll up and adjust for the different contracts that we have across all salaries and groups, it's about $4.5 million. The restorations of our instructional coaches, backfilling of the assistant superintendent for teaching and learning, which is my former job, for which I'm currently doing, and that's also broken up amongst some other folks on my team as well. That needs to be filled to provide adequate support and to also make sure that we're pursuing grants, to make sure that we're pursuing innovation, and we continue on the path that we are on. It's a very important job. Our 13 media specialists, 2 elementary assistant principals, 1 security coordinator, very important, 3 administrative supports in offices that do not have them. And because of the budget cuts last year, and were desperately needed, that are important, and our 3 SIAP coaches that were eliminated and are being housed in grants this year that will be coming back online next year. New positions, non-academy, SPED or MLL. So with the number of staff that we're going to be hiring next year and through this budget, and also with the high rate of turnover and the number of persistent vacancies that we're experiencing, we're going to invest in a recruiter. Additionally, an HR benefits specialist. We have over a $30 million benefits outfit here, and we have 1 person, no secretary, no support. So that's the operational efficiency component that we were talking about earlier, that we need to be able to make sure that we're able to conduct business in the way that we need to, and service not just the students but our staff as well. Senior accountant, this was sorely needed. We've been through multiple audits at this point. We're paying top dollar for agency support, and this is a position that we should have in here anyways in our finance department. 4 student support specialists to support our largest elementary schools. 3 teachers. This is a number, elementary teachers, this is a number that fluctuates from the time that we project the budget starting in November, December. The number of teachers that we need can change. At the time that we put the budget together, we had about 3 set aside. The number can go up to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, depending on enrollment and shifts. And so we keep a close eye on that, but we have 3 as a placeholder in here for now. Our AIS magnet school needs some recruiting. We are losing some of our tuition dollars and reimbursements from the state because our numbers are not quite where they need to be. So we're going to put a little bit of money behind our recruitment of students in surrounding towns so that we can hopefully regain that money multiple times over in the form of tuition and grants. And then those are the benefits for those positions. As I already mentioned before, this is the paraeducator driver, so an increase in the paraeducator salary floor and increasing the number of paraeducators and the associated benefits. Special education, we are in need of at least 2 more special education teachers, a social worker, a speech and language pathologist. Those are the benefits related to those. There's an increase in some of our contractual services that we engage in. Out-of-district tuitions are up $1.6 million. So we've incurred a lot last year. So this is the projection heading into this year. Next year, I should say, sped supplies and equipment, and then increase in transportation costs and runs. As far as our multilingual learners, we have a variety of support that they're going to need, bilingual teachers, paraeducators. We need more leadership department head as we're growing, and school liaisons. We lost those last year, and it's a position that every single principal is dying to get back because they help support the home to school connections. They also helped us to reduce our chronic absenteeism numbers. Very important. And then these are associated benefits, health, dental, life, workman's comp, and then we had a little bit of an offset with unemployment compensation. IT and security, this was a number that normally is quite large. We moved some of this to grants, and then the majority of it will be spent this year using ARPA funds, one-time funds. And then a list of other, if you will, building repairs and maintenance, transportation adjustments. We have an increase in the number of homeless students in the district. Whenever our transportation goes up, it also goes up. We pay for the non-pubs as well. So that number has gone up a little bit. And then alarms and infrastructure, utility, staff development, and some small miscellaneous, very small dollar amounts that add up to $199,000. If you look proportionately across the increases for the 34.46, you can see where the preponderance of money is, where the drivers are. So the academies represent 29%, new positions around 3%, benefits at 13%, sped at 8.1%, the competitive para staffing model at 14%, contractual increases around 13%, and restorations around 10%. And in our total budget of 194,464, again, it's 21% increase over, 5.2% is dedicated to the academy. If we had our full budget last year at 181, all positions which we needed, the increase over the original 181 would have only been about 7.2%, which would be in the ballpark of surrounding districts and school systems similar to ours. So with that, I will take a few Q&A from the group, and I will stop sharing for a few. I know that was a lot.
I think my only question is there a way to see this whole budget? Like if tomorrow when we talk about it with my school, or, I could talk to the principal, see if there's anything that we could do. Is there a way to get this budget to share with her?
Absolutely. So the budget will be available. I believe, Ken, we'll have a recording to share, correct, at the end of this?
Thank you so much.
And Kara, this is Mike. A version of this presentation is on our website currently.
That's right. Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I just want to say thank you for such a thorough presentation and making the information so accessible to all of us. I really think that this is a very clear perspective on where we are as a district, and I appreciate your clarity and leadership. My question is pretty simple. What do you recommend is the best way for us as parents to help with this process?
Right. Well, just by being present tonight, that's a great start. Being able to articulate, the why. Sometimes when, in town, we recognize a 21% increase, could have a serious effect on folks. And while we may not get all of that we need, I think it's important to keep dialogue open between and amongst the parents about the why. Staying active in the PTO, coming to all of things like this where we're having dialogue, where our board members can hear what your concerns are. Our board meetings sometimes they're really well attended and sometimes not so much. But I know that our board appreciates hearing from parents, particularly on these issues. It allows them and me to know where to press on these budget issues and where to be more vocal. And it also allows us to, when it comes time to make decisions, hard decisions, we kind of know where the parents stand on these things. Of course, our budget gets presented to City Hall in April. And there's a couple of open sessions that will come up. And certainly if you're a taxpayer and you want to start to talk about that and bring your friends, that's always certainly welcome. The more that we can educate people from a point of transparency, understanding, and having the details, I think the greater chance we have of kind of building that coalition of understanding about, why the budget is as high as it is and why we need to kind of keep at it. The fear, I have is, it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation when you present a budget this big, and this high and this, with all the numbers and all the details. But I think it's really important that parents know what they're getting and what they're not getting for their tax dollars. And I think, I think it's important that city hears from our parents in a positive way. I do feel good that there's an open dialogue and that the city has an open ear towards this, and there's a commitment to improving our school system. I know our many of the folks who are in the highest levels of offices there have children in our school system as well, which is also very helpful. So, I think that there's a goodwill there, but I think the more that they hear from parents and people who are directly affected and their children are directly affected by the services we're able to provide or not to provide, the better. Thanks for your support.
So I'll jump in. That one slide that you posted there, the side by side with us and Norwalk, a typical school, to me was a very powerful slide. That
Yeah.
was not something I've seen before in any budget presentation, and a little terrifying, quite frankly. But okay, so just like a random question. Teacher pay scales probably vary. I mean, a first year teacher's not making what a 25-year teacher should. So when you budget, how does that work? How does that factor in? Like, are you budgeting like an average? Or are you budgeting like,
Yeah, so it's a great question. So maybe about 10 years ago, we used to budget, like $70,000 all in, 50,000 starting salary and then 20,000 in budget in benefits. But we've been hiring, our actuals in terms of our hiring have been much higher because the competition for staff is much greater. There was a time when if you were a teacher and you were teaching for 10 or 15 years and you tried to move to another district, you'd have a really hard time because nobody wanted to pay top step for a teacher with experience to come into their district. Everybody was looking for that first year teacher. The game has completely changed, and we are now constantly looking at staff members with 10, 12, 13 years experience, particularly if they are in math or science, or they're bilingual teacher, or they have a very skilled position like a coach. We are paying upwards of, I think we budgeted now for, was it 85 that we budget all in? Because we're just hiring at that rate anyway. So it was a false sense to say, budget at that lower number, because we're, like I said, we have a lot of persistent vacancies on top of this in the STEM math areas, chemistry, bio, very hard to fill because of certification. So we really do need to do something to attract greater. Otherwise, the kids are the ones who pay the price. We have high places where we have a lot of substitute teachers coming and going because we've got vacancies and people leave. It's very disruptive to students' academics, particularly at the secondary level, could be detrimental.
And then just out of curiosity, do we have like a grant writer? Is that like a designated position, or is that like a bucket list, something that we'd love, right?
Yes, I would love to get a grant writer at some point, but that's what an assistant superintendent, I did all the grants, but I'm still doing all the grants. I shouldn't say all the grants, but a good number of grants. Our assistant superintendent, Kelly Trutris, does quite a few grants in her area in special education and for homelessness and for many things. Ann Mead does a lot of grants for families. She's a very prolific grant writer. But there's about 3 of us who do those, and it's extraordinarily time consuming, and there's ability to pursue more if you have the room to do that. But again, that assistant soup, I did a lot of that work in that role, and I'm still doing it. And if we want to get better at some things, we're going to have to backfill some of these positions that are key. That's that operational efficiency piece that we talk about. There's some point when you cut below the belt and it's not working.
Maybe we could rework the high school writing curriculum to teach them to write.
Yeah, we could try it, Chrissy. I'm willing to try anything at this point.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, sure.
I have a quick question along those same lines about the grants, because I know that possibly it had come through for King Street to have the walls put up in the schools as part of the grant. I don't know if you know any information about that. Some of our parents have been asking
Yeah, I think
where
that
that
that's
is and where we're moving and what's
sure.
going on with that, because walls would be wonderful to help
Of
a lot more
course.
kids.
Of course. So as I mentioned before, when the city received an extra allocation of 12 million, they started to put that towards some of the priorities on a capital improvement list. So Ellsworth Avenue School, I believe, was part of that. So there's a leaky roof. There was a few other projects in there that were super important. The next project that's on the list that there's a lot of attention on right now is the King Street project. And I know our city leaders and our delegates are working hard to secure something through legislative funding. And so they're asking, they've reached out to us and asked us lots of questions to help them with some things that they're trying to work on to get that project underway. So I do know that they're working on it. I know that it's a very important project, not just to us, but to them as well. They recognize the need. So it's on the list and it's high up there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just have one other quick question, if that's all right.
Sure.
I noticed that the conversation naturally went towards grants, which makes me think about the revenue side of the budget. We spent a lot of time talking about the expenditures, and certainly there's a lot to talk about there. And I think my personal opinion is everything you're asking for is reasonable and probably not enough, definitely not enough.
Sure.
Is there a way for us? I think that's a big driver for a lot of parents in the community as well, to understand where do the revenues come from for the school district. I know in the past there's been quite a bit of conversation about how much of the school district's budgets financed specifically from tax levy versus grants versus other opportunities that they have there as well. So where can we find information about that to help support your proposal?
Sure. So we have we're in the process of developing what we call the budget book, the big budget book, and that's what goes over to the city, where it's kind of the complete package of everything. For example, our largest grant that we receive is the Alliance grant, and so that's a $30 million grant. That's going to go up about $5 million next year, but it's packed with staff, and so some of that increase, which would be, I don't know if you'd call it revenue, but some of that increase will get eaten up with contractual obligations just with the amount of staff that we have in the grant. So we'll have a little bit of room in there and some relief, but we won't really, until we kind of get the whole landscape, we'll know what tolerance our grants can have, as well as anything in the general fund. So I would say we have 30 million, 35, 60 million, probably about $60 million of what we do comes from about grants, but that's all going to be laid out in a larger package. What we have out there right now is kind of the big presentation that we have. This book here will turn into probably like a 2-inch binder with all of that information. We can certainly get that out to everybody to take a look at. That'll be posted on the website as well.
That slide with Norwalk was, as Chrissy mentioned, like extremely compelling, and it makes me wonder, what does the revenue side of their budget look like relative to Danbury's? How much of that is funded through the tax base versus through grants versus through others, and then how do their mill rate compare as well? That might be a question better asked to the city council, but I'm just trying to get as much information as possible.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It's a great question.
And Kevin too, I'll just jump in. I don't know if you've ever heard of Erica Haynes with the school, Connecticut School Finance. She has like a lot of information too on that actually compares us to other districts. And yeah, definitely, I think there's room for improvement there too. So,
Chrissy, I was just gonna mention that too. It's schoolstatefinance.org, and if you click on the issues tab, you can go and line up side by side Danbury versus other districts, and they'll really break out into a bar chart what's federal, what's state, what's local, and then they'll, there's a whole different ways they'll chop that data up, but you can go in there and get lost for hours. I've spent a lot of time in that website.
Great site.
Mm-hmm.
if I can find it real quick, I'll send it to you, Kevin. But
Thank you.
so and just so I know too, so you said that the 181 was our ask last year, which obviously we did not get, but then we had that supplemental that kind of came in. But had we got that 181 last year, it would have been a 7.2% increase, which would be sort of in line with other districts. That's a tip.
Yeah, and surrounding towns are anywhere between like 3, 6, 8. I think one next door is around close to 11. A lot of people are hurting because of the healthcare, the rise in healthcare costs, and then special education costs that are going up. But yeah, we would totally be in the ballpark of a normal, pretty typical ask. I think we're just in a place where we need, it's like that one-time catch up.
Right.
To get back on track, because we lost ground for about 10 years. So
well, yeah, it's, I guess, yeah, you said 3, 6. So like we're the high end of that, but to me, like, I guess my question was, we're opening a new building. So
yeah,
like it should be
huge,
on the high end.
Definitely.
Okay, because to me that's why I sound low. I'm like, wait, if we're opening a new building, how could we possibly be like but if we're on the high end of in line, then that.
But even still though, even with the building, we would have only had a 7 point something.
Right.
Like it would have been a phenomenal ask, right? Considering we're opening a new building. So it's really, just kind of puts it into perspective that it's high, but it's really not compared to what our needs are and what, it could be.
Okay.
I have a question. A friend asked me, she's watching but not able to ask. So the question is, have there been any preliminary discussions with the city regarding the budget?
Yeah, so Mike and I went over last week and we had our first discussions. Yes.
Any feedback from the discussion?
Well, it's a big ask. It's a big ask, and certainly folks were prepared. I think we're preparing for the academy, but when you put a comprehensive budget together, I think the big driver is obviously the academy, but we have 17 other schools and 9,000 other kids outside of our 12,000 that need support, and cumulatively, building by building, department by department, the things add up pretty quickly, even though there some places it's just incremental. But what we're experiencing is really no different than what other districts are experiencing, but because of our scale and sort of where we started, it just puts us at a little bit of a disadvantage in terms of the ask.
Yeah, I really appreciate all that you've been doing, the fight for all the extracurricular and your focus on be more competitive salaries, because I'm sure it's really frustrating to lose teacher after teacher. When they become great, then they leave. So I appreciate that your focus is there.
Yeah, I appreciate that. The amount of effort and work that goes into recruiting, hiring, and onboarding, training, mentoring, supporting with the very few people that we have, only to lose them a year later. Is devastating.
It's frustrating as a family when you get great teachers and then you lose them. It's frustrating.
Yes.
That's all, but thank you.
Thank you.
And I think I dropped the right link in the chat there for the Connecticut School Finance Project.
And Erica does workshops all over the state, free workshops, like just hop into a Zoom and you will learn a tremendous amount about how Connecticut works.
She's great. And she'd even meet one-on-one with anybody. She'll talk to anybody. She's very, very good.
Yes. Free.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, certainly this won't be our first run with talking to parents and doing some community conversations around the budget. And, we'll certainly touch base again as the budget story develops over the course of the next couple of months.
So actually, I just thought of one other quick one. So with the survey that went out, so being that improving arts and sports and whatnot, how did you factor that in for the budget? I'm assuming that you did the survey to factor it in, but where
so in our regular budget, that's a preservation of those items, right? So like what we have now, we're not losing. And also on the grant side of things, last year, we did put a little bit of infusion into some of the different categories. So for instance, Tim will tell you, we try to support the music programs a little bit more. We've got a little tiny, not a lot of money, you know, $5,000 in for, you know, theater arts programs and things like that, so they can get some of the things that they need. But, you know, we had heard from, if you remember, the city, we were at City Hall, we had kids coming in talking about anything from, you know, broken tubas and not having the equipment needed to be competitive at these, you know, large stage events. And it's pretty heartbreaking when you got kids that put in the amount of time and effort after school every single day, hours and hours and hours a week, to not have the basic equipment they need to be competitive with schools that, quite frankly, that Danbury could be, you know, beating everywhere that they go with our size, our number, and the commitment that we have in some of our programs. So they just needed a little extra boost, and so we gave them a little bit, and we're going to keep an eye on them, because, you know, when we have tight budgets, these are the kinds of things, the first things that go. So, you know, it doesn't take too much to really support these programs. It just takes really paying attention and dedicating funds, and when we look for grants, finding some little niches to sock some money away so that they can keep up with things like uniforms and instruments and repair, excuse me, a little bit of transportation, things like that. We've been supporting our robotics program the last couple of years. We did that with the robotics program. They're killing it. They're going all over the place with their program. It's blown up. So you make sure that the kids have the parts that they need, the tools that they need to work on the robots, and that the teacher has the right materials and access in terms of getting kids to tournaments. So it's just as important as sports, right? We take care of our athletics.
Absolutely. That's what I was going to just say. I you know, I love the sport. And it's not just Danbury. It's not a Danbury thing. Like the sport, you know, or the arts tends to get, you know, left out everywhere. And, you know, it's like, cause even I've got nieces and nephews in New Jersey, and same thing there. They have to do their own fundraising. They have to do, you know, all, and it's like, why?
Yeah. I mean, we're trying to help. It's important to our kids. It's important to our staff. It's important to parents. So we're doing our best, and we'll continue to do that as long as we can.
I just wanted to add on to that. I think it's really super important that our kids don't come to school to be compliant, but they come to school to be excited. And that's how we get them excited. The arts, the sports, everything extra, that's what makes them excited to show up.
Field trips.
The field trips. I mean, we gotta, like, I know personally from me being a kid, that's what made me excited to show up.
Right.
So
totally agree.
Agreed. Dr. Casimir, are you able to send us or have Care P send us the copy of the packet so far? Normally we would just blast it
we'll
out.
send that right over.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody have any other questions? I'll stop asking.
Chair Cooper, did you have something?
Thank you, Tim. I just enjoyed the presentation again. And I think the superintendent and our finance director doing an excellent job working together and getting the information out to parents so they will understand the budget and hopefully will support our budget. So again, I just enjoyed the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. And again, I can't overemphasize enough how much work went into developing the budget. You know, that it wasn't just the ask here, it's the behind the scenes preparation. Having come off of multiple finance directors, having come off a massive funding cliff, which, you know, if you're in the finance world and you have to suddenly find a way to move and shift, you know, $20 million worth of stuff, it really blows up all of your lines and your back end, and it can wreak havoc. And so Mike has been doing a fantastic job of doing some post-ESSER cleanup, and also making things, you know, bucketing and categorizing things so that it makes my job easier in terms of being able to go into our budget with a scalpel instead of a sledgehammer, which I think is a huge difference. Yeah.
I agree. I thought it was very comprehensive, very well put together.
Yeah.
Actually, I was just happening to think too, like even for next year, like that one slide, probably you could even, trickle that down to like a classroom. What's a typical, Danbury classroom versus a normal classroom look like?
Yep.
In terms of what they are provided.
Yep.
Sports team, to a sports team, band to a band.
We lost athletics at the middle school.
Mhm.
Many years ago, I was the basketball coach, assistant basketball coach over there when we had sports at the middle school.
Yep.
So those got lost in budget cuts quite a while back, and we just implemented through a grant some intramural programming to start to build that back in, that culture of staying after and competing and having another adult check in on you and hold you accountable and make sure you're going to class and all of that. So we're hoping to at some point bring middle school athletics back.
Motivate kids to want to be successful so that they
Right.
can participate in these things.
Right.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, does anybody have anything else or anything outside of the budget that they would like to bring up? Otherwise,
Hold on, I'll be the guy that asks for homework at the end.
Yeah, but don't cause trouble. No.
Sorry.
Yep.
I'm stuck on the process piece of this. So, so the budget has been adopted by, your proposed budget's been adopted by the Board of Education. Next step is it goes to the city council. After this, we'll have opportunities for public hearing, but ultimately each city council member has the opportunity to vote on the mayor's proposed budget, which would be inclusive of this and the city's budget. So,
Yep.
okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood before I emailed my city council.
Yes, yeah. So our budget went over, the board's budget already has been sent over to the mayor for his review, and he reviews that in line with all of his other departments, and then they do their work from there. And I believe, what we can send out is the actual timeline. Right now, we've been given target weeks. That's going to happen. I'll go back and see if they actually gave us the actual date that they're presenting wholesale, but we'll try to get that out.
Okay. Yeah, what I'm really inquiring about is where the leverage points are. What is the typical, what's the probability that the mayor's proposed budget will be a red penned version of the one that you were proposed versus does it go to the city council as is and get voted on, and in that respect? So that would determine whether the leverage point is with the mayor or with the individual council member.
We receive, Kevin, an allocation. And then from that point, we go back with the red line and have to figure out where we would have to go to, would stay within the allocation. So we'd go back to the drawing board and revise the budget, our ask for the following year. So we'll receive an allocation.
I understand. Thank you. Appreciate
Okay.
clarity. Thank you.
Of course.
And typically, Kevin, the part of where the public can speak is usually over spring break.
Well, I will say this, they chose the week, I think before that. I'll go back and get the dates. To their credit, that was a complaint that I had for 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
That the vote was always on April break. And that was just never sat well with me. And they listened last year, and I believe there's a genuine will to make sure that the process is done the way it's supposed to be done. All the players right now that were, there's a lot of goodwill there and well-intended people that are trying to do the best. So we just need, we need a little time to catch up to where we should be, and hopefully we'll get a really good result this year. To make a big step in that direction.
That was a very hard ask when you would go to council chambers over the break and see 30 people there when it could have been 500.
Right.
Because of break. Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. All right. Anybody, anything else? Kevin, you done?
For now. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kevin. All right. Well, we're good.
All right. All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming. So I guess if nobody has anything else, then we'll take a motion to adjourn. Anybody?
Motion.
And actually,
Motion.
Dr. Casimiro, if you can just hang just 1 second after,
Sure.
I'd appreciate it. But all right. So I guess thank you everybody for coming. Then we will see you. What did I say? Our next meeting was March 3rd, so a month from today.